Thank you for this presentation, for this introduction. Before I start my talk, I'd like to maybe say in a few words what my current project involves. Elemental Entanglements, a study of changing environmental landscapes in Scotland, aims to analyse and navigate literary and artistic expressions and narratives, narrations of geologic, atmospheric and marine entanglements. So what I'm going to talk about today is something that I have already done a little on, and that is the lithic or stone entanglements. So in my talk today, I'd like to focus on the ways in which the work of selected Scottish writers offers a powerful manifestation of experiencing landscapes with their organic and elemental aspects, which reveals ways of thinking of the embodied self and the world. I will explore geologic entanglements centered around questions concerning the ways in which inhuman dimensions of life have consequences for how human-earth relations can be understood. My current work has been inspired by the material turn in critical theory and recent debates in distributed fields of agency and of meaning. The principal argument involving the agency of matter, which bears implications on the idea of subjectivity and textual practices. The authors with whom I am concerned offer a highly distinctive manner of responding to the world, in which the self is inseparable, as I would argue, from the elements, focusing particularly and repeatedly on the sea, stone, and wind. The work mingles the atmospheric and chthonic powers, like chthonic meaning under or beneath the earth. And because so much of their writing focuses on the ground, rocks, and stones, it exhibits, as I wish to argue, what Geoffrey Jerome Cohen calls geophilia, or geophilia, as he describes an ecological allure, a propulsive and conjoining force that draws earth and water into a union generative of stone, that draws stone and other worldly things together to create, compose, produce. My discussion will include an inquiry into the ways in which the elements and landscapes are involved in embodying forth literary texts. In a series of close readings of essays, excerpts of essays and poems by these three authors, Nan Shepherd, Kathleen Jamie and Jen Hatfield, I will attempt to demonstrate the ways in which stone is involved in co-writing these texts, or how the materiality of the text corresponds with the materiality of the landscape. Shepherd, presciently ecological and phenomenological essay, The Living Mountain, written in the 1940s and published in 1977, evokes an intimate relationship with a lithic or stone element. Jamie's involvement in archaeological digs marks an ambiguous temporality of things past and things yet to come. Finally, Hatfield offers observations from the Shetlandic world, in which time is deep and everything has living consciousness and a voice. Before I turn to literary texts, however, I wish to spend a little bit of time talking about the theoretical aspects, as I mentioned, new materialism and eco-criticism, but elemental eco-criticism, a branch of eco-criticism. So the two names mainly that I wish to refer to today are Jane Bennett, the author of Vibrant Matter, Political Ecology of Things, published in 2010, and more recently in 2020, Bennett published Influx and Efflux, writing up with Walt Whitman. So Bennett explores the agency and vitality of non-human entities and their impact on politics and ethics. She proposes a framework of vital materialism and that challenges the traditional human-centric view of the world, arguing that non-human entities, such as plants, animals, inanimate objects, possess a kind of vitality that influences and shapes the social and political realm. By acknowledging the agency of non-human entities, or knots and clots, as she says, Bennett aims to reconfigure our understanding of the world and politics. She suggests that all matter, whether living or non-living, possesses a vibrancy that can exert force and impact the world. But that she emphasizes the capacity of matter to act and affect change beyond human intention and control. So by recognizing the vibrancy of matter, Bennett challenges the dominant view of human exceptionalism and invites us to reconsider our relationship with the non-human world. Through an examination of this agency and vitality of the non-human entities is a word she favors, it seems. Bennett also raises questions about our ethical and moral obligations towards them. She argues for an ethics of care and attentiveness towards the non-human world, advocating for an ecological sensibility that recognizes the inherent value and interconnectedness of all beings and things. And this ethics of care is something that I would like to stress also in my readings, ethics of care and attentiveness. Another author who has already been mentioned, Jeffrey Jerome Cohen, and his work on stone and on the lithic proved equally fertile in my readings. But I'm going to say a few words about an edited collection that he co-edited with Lowell Duckard, Elemental Eco-Criticism, published in 2015. And this collection explores the intersections between nature, culture, and the elements, which emphasizes again the agency and the vitality of earth, air, water, and fire, and how they shape and influence human and non-human lives. The subtitle of Elemental Eco-Criticism, Thinking with Earth, Air, Water, and Fire, seems characteristic of the current approach to the natural world in the humanities and social sciences, in which the preposition with is emphasized. So, for example, take thinking with nature, which occurs in some publications. Thinking with animals, new perspectives on anthropocentrism, a volume co-edited by Lorraine Daston and Greg Midman. David Wood's Thinking with Cats. Annie Zophie Baltzer's project, Thinking with Glaciers. These are just a few examples. The essays in Cohen and Duckard's volume highlight how the elements actively participate in ecological processes and have their own material and symbolic significance. The authors demonstrate the ways in which the elements possess both material and symbolic meanings, which shape our understanding of the world. So, elemental eco-criticism emphasizes the importance of developing an ecological imagination that recognizes the interconnections between humans and the elements. The authors explore how literature, art, and culture can inspire an ecological consciousness and foster a sense of care and responsibility, or responsibility, to quote Donna Haraway, towards the environment, and investigating how cultural and literary representations of the elements impact our relationship with the natural world. So now I'm going to move to the three authors in question, starting with Nan Shepherd. And this is just to tell you, this is, I placed them chronologically. So Shepherd was born at the end of the 19th century, lived until 1981, and then the two other authors are still around, and they are, I hope you will see the continuities, maybe the intersections between them. So during her life, Shepherd was basically known as a fiction writer because she published 3 novels and also a collection of poems. She was very proud of it, but this was a very narrow period, 1928-1934. Other than that, she was a very active member of her community in Aberdeen, teaching for many years literature at the city's teacher training college, and was also later on in her life the editor of the Aberdeen University Review. Set in northeast Scotland in the Cairngorms, Nan Shepherd's writing originates from an authentic intimacy with the landscape, emphasising a familiarity with all its aspects, closely observed in all weathers and seasons. So I don't know how many of you have been to the Cairngorms or know the Cairngorms, so I thought I'd show you just the images of the area. This is basically what inspired Nan Shepherd's writing. The work, she was an experienced climber. She also observed closely the landscape. And in the 1940s, towards the end of the Second World War, she wrote The Living Mountain, an essay memoir, but she didn't find a publisher, and it was only published in 1977. And I'll be quoting actually the edition from 2011. Right now, the essay, The Living Mountain, has become an inspiration for many works of art, like different forms, artistic forms of expression. So in this essay, Shepherd foregrounds the interdependence between humans and the world through an embodied inherence in a slow, deep exploration. The first part of The Living Mountain is devoted to elemental being, inanimate things, as Shepherd writes, rock and water, frost and sun, that create all that is animate. She never ceases to underline, quote, that earth, air, fire and water move, rebel, ally, crash and desire. This is from Cohen and Duckard. The depictions of the elemental world in her work reflect the contrasting complementarity of elements and living matter. The mountain is alive with plants, roots and seeds anchoring themselves, despite seeming fragility. They have roots of timeless endurance. Yes. Plants and animals are part of the mountain's wholeness, entangled, inextricably related. The sense of relatedness provides, I hope you can see that. Okay. The sense of relatedness provides the title for the collection. All are aspects of one entity, the living mountain. Never stopping at a surface view, Shepherd dives into the landscape in order to gain in-depth knowledge. The intertwining of the embodied consciousness with the world pervades the text. In her journey into the mountain, prepositions, again I come back to prepositions. So prepositions assume a special significance. Among those most frequently used are into, is particularly favoured, together with in and inside, which create and emphasize the mediation of entangled matter, an ecological enmeshing, you can say. So for instance, Shepherd writes about going into the mountain and into the hill, walking in cloud. So interiority is highlighted when such phrases as a sensation inside of a rock, walking again inside clouds appear. Here is a longer passage. So there I lie on the plateau, under me the central core of fire from which was thrust this grumbling, grinding rock mass of plutonic rock. Over me blue air, and between the fire of the rock and the fire of the sun, scree, soil and water, moss, grass, flower and tree, insect, bird and beast, rain and snow, the total mountain. Slowly I have found my way in. In contrast to going into oneself as a result of going into the mountain, Shepherd employs the expression to go through the hasty, through the business of living, to suggest a hasty, unreflective existence. To go through the business of living. The final paragraph of the book emphasizes the interchangeable relation of the embodied consciousness and the land. And she writes, as I penetrate more deeply into the mountain's life, I penetrate also into my own. Shepard shows the manner in which matter mingles in all its forms in a process of constant exchange. The changeability of the observed phenomena and things is inherent to matter, we can say. Never inert, but vibrant, to employ Bennett's term. The world of matter is in a dynamic interchange with the embodied consciousness. Material vibrancy is manifest in the depictions of entanglement between various forms. And here I've got some examples. Static, she uses this interesting expression, static things may be caught in the very act of becoming. The process of momentary encroachment occurs when an object fuses with the surrounding. Rose melt into the wood. The earth seems to reabsorb a dough disappearing into birches, which is described as this creature of air and light. A tawny owl emerges from the dark only to be melted down into the air. Towards the end of The Living Mountain, the realization of the interrelated nature of the world intensifies, as Shepard stresses being entangled with plants and non-human animals. And there's one more quote. I am a manifestation of its total life, as is the starry sacrifice or the white-winged ptarmigan. And these are just to again illustrate the beings, plants and animals that inhabit the cairngorms. The next author, Kathleen Jamie, is a poet and essayist, and today I'm going to refer to her essays. But most perhaps importantly in terms of prestige, Kathleen Jamie is the current Scotland's Maca, so the national poet of Scotland at the moment. And I would like to point out that the features of northern landscapes where sea, light and wind dominate, the mingling of the atmospheric powers is emphasized in her work, particularly in her essays, whereby humans are attuned to the effects of the weather world, or perhaps also affected, maybe not only attuned, I should say, but affected, deeply affected by those effects. In this section of my talk, I will refer to particularly the first two collections, Findings and Sightlines. Jamie's interest in the lithic element is revealed in her involvement in archaeological digs, first in Perthshire, close to home, then also Orkney and St Kilda, in the presence of some other time, surfacing and changing wind patterns that uncover ancient settlements. That happened, for example, in Orkney in the mid-19th century. Human time is contrasted with the elemental time marked by stone, wind and sea, these three nouns recurring through Jamie's essays and poems. As she writes, if we work always in words, sometimes we need to recuperate in a place where language doesn't join up, where we're thrown back on a few elementary nouns, sea, bird, sky. Jamie's essays attest that landscapes are explored by looking closely at what is on and in the ground. A handful of earth spanning centuries reveals a glimpse, this is a quote from Jamie, a glimpse of a life and a time. In one of the essays, she describes how handling the earth at the Neolithic henge dating back 4,000 years, the diggers had, quote, Neolithic dust under their fingernails, unquote. A phrase which fleshes out an intimate, tangible connection with, you can say, deep time. In their cultural, historical and social formation, whole landscapes constitute, to quote Jamie, an information exchange, unquote, where perceptual transfer between the world and the perceiver establishes the relation between subjectivity and the natural world, mediated through time. Compared with planetary temporalities, yes, Neolithic dust under the fingernails. Compared with the planetary temporalities, the awareness of the brevity of biological life foregrounds the manner in which lifespans are inscribed in enormous totalities. And this is something I'm going to address in the last part of my talk. Geological changes in time occur beyond human perception. Human constructions, which extend thousands of years into the past, but which have fallen into disuse, reveal, and this is from Jamie, the earth-vast notion that time is deep, that memories are buried. Reaching into the earth to uncover a Neolithic enclosure which lingered, quote, lingered a long, long time in custom and memory, unquote, a Bronze Age cyst or kist burial becomes uncovered just by accident. The monoliths in North Mains provoke reflections on the place at a different time. And this is a longer quote from Jamie. This same topography, I walked out into the middle of the fallow field on its plateau, with the enclosing hills and twin east-flowing rivers. It is still the landscape the Neolithic people had understood so acutely, the same earth into which the Bronze Age woman had been lowered. Eastward, vanishing into haze, lay the river valley I'd driven that morning, where once the wild aurochs roamed. The words this and here ground the subject, establishing a spatial and temporal link. Through the repetition of the verb, the statement beginning the final paragraph of the essay, you are placed in landscape, you are placed in time, binds the two key nouns, landscape and time. Geological formations may seem a constant, immovable presence only from the human perspective, but they are nested in timescales of their own. The knowledge about the placement of prehistoric sites alters awareness. Being in proximity with the Neolithic henge underneath which there lay Bronze Age objects, exploring them with one's hands and on one's knees, makes one, quote, feel unhooked from time, unquote. In this way, the archaeological dig creates an impression of being temporarily dislocated, to quote Jamie again. Even though some elements of the landscape, the range of hills, this is Jamie, the plateau where we worked, the twin flowing rivers, the pines and cawing rooks, may seem constant, end of quote. In the presence of ancient artifacts that the land reveals, it is possible to imagine, as Jamie does, quote, the pulse of ancient energy in the land, quietly persistent even in the slushy suburban sprawl, end of quote. Jamie suggests that imagination may help abolish all layers of time, bringing the past to the present as, quote, the past, the various pasts, we're all present, end of quote. So now to my last author, Jen Hatfield. She is a British poet and artist based in Shetland. The title of her still latest collection, The Stone Age, points to the time in human culture during which the use of stone as a cultural tool was widespread, with what remains today as dolmens, picture stones, standing stones, stone circles. Yet through a reversal of the anthropocentric perspective, many of Hatfield's poems focus on the stone world where humans are, quote, stone's travelling companions, with the lithic offering multiple non-coincidental modes of worldly inhabitants, to cite Geoffrey Jerome Cohen. Considering the importance of the elemental in Hatfield's volume, its title may be understood, as I would suggest, that stone lies at the heart of things, the eponymous phrase signifying the age of stone, a time in which the elemental world takes center stage, decentering the human in a form of resistance to what has come to be widely referred to as the age of men, or the Anthropocene. The title of Hatfield's previous collection, Byssus, refers to sea silk, denoting the beard of the mussel, which anchors it to the seabed. Similarly, in the Stone Age, Hatfield uses the word erdfast, a Shetland term meaning, like bedrock, a stone solidly fixed in earth. In this poem, the speaker unearths rocks and A process compared to childbirth. I midwife 100 rocks in a day. In other poems, there are references to low-growing plants such as skunk cabbage, nettles, which, this is from another poem, seize hold of the soil's dark meat. Or plants which dug up from the earth, such as rhubarb. Some poems include references to gardening tools, for instance, scythe, wheelbarrow, strimmer, or a tashkar, which is a word from Shetlandic, a peat spade, as the reader may learn. All these poems reveal Hatfield's sustained interest in vibrant objects of the physical world, especially the objects residing close to the earth or just beneath its surface. Both Bisses and Erdfast foreground the motif of belonging, which takes the form of clinging to rock or being nested in the ground. Compared to stone's temporal extensiveness, humankind are brief, soft fireworks, as Hatfield writes in Dolman. If Lycan in the poem of the same title, Opening Bisses, is on the verge of speaking back, to cite Matthew Sperling, then in the Stone Age, non-living objects speak in their language poetically imagined. But what language does stone speak? Let us see. Written in the tradition of concrete poetry, the visual grey stone poems are enclosed in brackets and printed in an oversized font, which, as the poet argues, is meant to dwarf the reader, unable to apprehend them as they are spoken by the representatives of the lithic. The greyness of the print is soft, as if it were the heart of a stone wrapped in consciousness. These poems resist reading aloud because, as the poet herself admits, the voice in which they should or even, could be read is not known. The voice cannot be imitated, as the speaking objects, or indeed subjects, are endowed with their own material agency. And so at times Hatfield does not strive for maintaining sense, but moves away from it in order to focus on the eerie blend of sounds, which appears to resist deliberately or even deny comprehension. So, for example, this is the opening poem of the collection, Stone Circle. In another poem, Erratic, there is, as you can see, a huge boulder like full stop. And we can say that typography gains a new function, offering an interplay between word and image. In this manner, Hatfield seems to suggest the essential unknowingness of matter, or its unreadability. To end, as the British essayist Olivia Laing notes in Funny Weather, Art in an Emergency, quote, "What art does is provide material with which to think. New registers, new spaces," unquote. Art and literature show us how to make sense of the world, how to approach knowledge and uncertainty, how to express wonder and enchantment. The work of Nan Shepherd, Kathleen Jamie, and Jen Hatfield, each in a distinct manner and style, demonstrates a deep engagement that relies upon not only thinking, but also being with the elements. Through their consideration of geologic materialities and shared intimacies with the lithic, they pull the reader into deep time, beyond anthropocentric concerns. Demonstrating geophilic tendencies phenomenologically immersed in the weather world, their texts offer a chance to reflect on an embodied presence with a substance alien to human duration. The elemental powers of earth, air, and water, which occupy a significant place in their writing, denote things that are elementary, things that matter. It may be said that these authors encourage us to reconsider our relationship with the natural world and to engage with the elements in more nuanced and ecologically aware ways. Thank you.